So in the next chapter, 14, Krishna begins to describe the three modes of material nature. The Gita contains 700 verses, and 100 of those 700 verses are dedicated to describing these three modes of material nature. Krishna explains that there are three influences in this world: goodness or sattva, passion or rajas, and ignorance or tamas. The Sanskrit word guna literally means rope, because these three modes of material nature are actually binding one to existence in this material world. And therefore in the 14th chapter, Krishna is explaining that the first thing one must do is elevate themselves to the mode of goodness. And Krishna explains the characteristics of the kind of person who is living in the mode of goodness. But later on, Krishna at the end of the chapter explains that one must go even beyond goodness. The Sanskrit word for goodness is sattva. But Krishna explains that one should actually live in the mode of suddha sattva. In other words, one should actually live in such a way that they offer everything to Krishna, and thus there will be no more reactions to any of their activities. And then, by such activity where there are no more reactions, one can actually go back to the spiritual world. Krishna explains in this chapter that even if one lives in the mode of goodness, one will still have to come back to the material world. And therefore, one should live in the mode of pure goodness. One time, Srila Prabhupada was traveling in a car. Every morning, he would go for a morning walk. So they were traveling in the car towards the park. So there was a huge traffic jam because there were some roadworks going on. So as they got stuck in the traffic jam, the car stopped right in front of one big sign. And the sign said, roadworks, temporary inconvenience, permanent improvements. Prabhupada, he saw that sign and he said, material world means temporary improvements, permanent inconvenience. Even if one lives in the mode of goodness, even if one lives a very dharmic life in one sense, it may not be enough to bring happiness, because happiness actually comes from relationship with Krishna. And therefore Krishna says, Mamcha yo vyabhicharena, bhakti yogena sevade, sagunan samadityetan, brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Krishna explains that one should engage in bhakti, devotional service, without any deviation. And by doing that, sagunan samadityetan, one will transcend all of these three modes of material nature, and one will go back to the spiritual world. If you compare the material world to a jail, I don't know if anyone here has ever been in jail or visited a jail, but there are different types of cells in a jail, isn't there? For the really deviant criminals, there is solitary confinement. Small room, dark, nowhere to move. And for those criminals who are a little bit more cooperative, they have bigger cells. And now I've heard even in the jail cells they have Xboxes and Nintendo Wii and other things. But even if you're in the best cell, an intelligent person will realize that actually, even though I'm in the best cell in the jail, the real purpose of my life is to get out of jail. So similarly, the three modes of material nature are different ways to live in the material world. Ignorance means a very solitary confinement lifestyle. And mode of goodness means a very spacious cell. But whether you're in this cell or that cell, the ultimate purpose is to leave the world. And therefore Krishna says one should transcend these three modes of material nature and one should go back to the spiritual world.